I mean, what? It was miserable. It was absolutely miserable a good chunk of the time, but there was parts that were awesome. So, in the euphoric recall or whatever they call it, that boils down to much. But the I was planning on doing that again this year, and then riding home, because that's a big logistical problem. Is what do you do at the end? And so I was already planning doing the race, and then riding home, which would be about the same mileage, about 4,000 miles. And that's what I did in 22. But as I started to think about it, I am getting older. Don't know how many more of these adventures I have in me or have left. And do I really want to commit 3 weeks of my time doing the exact same route? And so I had already set all the planes in motion. I hadn't bought any plane tickets yet, but I had already set the planes in motion for doing this. And I'm like, well, there's stuff up there I want to see. There's places I want to see and do, things I want to do. So I'm like, I'm still going to do it, but I'm not going to do the race. And I get to pick my own route. Because that is a thing with these self-supported bypassing races, which are awesome. And from a competitive standpoint, they have to have this, because otherwise it wouldn't be fair. But from a racer standpoint, you do that. You have to follow every inch of the route, exactly to a T. Then, on top of that, you can't get any support from anyone whatsoever. They have this thing called Trail Angels, which there's a lot of arguments. And this is all online, Facebook, and that. And I do not participate in any of that, by the way, but I'm in all those groups, so I see that stuff. About what is allowed, what qualifies as Trail Angel, and what is not. And so as a racer rider, you have that hanging over your head the entire time. Am I doing everything right? Will this count? I didn't want to do any of that. So I'm like, I can do my own route. I can go where I want to go and see what I want to see, and I don't have to worry about moving. So that's how we ended up with this. Originally, Christine was going to go too, and she and Josiah were going to go, and they were going to there was a UCI mountain bike race, a World Cup race, basically in the Banff area at the same time. And so we were going to go see that and do that, and then Josiah had his job interviews at camp, which you'll actually see. He was actually at the camp that you'll see there at the end. He was at that camp, and of course that was going to cost a lot. All three of us, lodging, places to stay for however many days, and then I was going to ride home. So we decided I was going to just go on my own. So that helped with the cost a lot. I just needed to buy a one-way plane ticket. I kid you not, that was under $200 from Birmingham to Edmonton, and one way. After tax, it was over $200, and then I had to pay another $40 because it was living in bare bones ticket, right? So my check bag, not oversized baggage. So I only had to pay the normal baggage tax. So it ended up being like $250 or $260 or something like that. Tax, everything. So incredible, incredible deal. So that's what I did. And then I had my bike in one of these boxes. You see that in a second? And so I had everything with me. So I'm having to go through the airport. Well, this is what I wore through the airport. Except I didn't have my bibs on. But I did have, so I brought one pair of short shorts because I wanted, as lightweight as possible and already, I had way too much stuff, and my bike probably weighed about 50 pounds with all the stuff on it. And half of that, so much electronics, and then all the charging for the electronics, and that's a good 10 pounds. I kid you not, for three of those big old battery packs, and then the electronics themselves, all the cords. I didn't weigh it, but I'm going to guess approaching 10 pounds, if not more. That was just that. Let alone my clothes, which was these exact ones actually, and this exact jersey. That was it for biking, and then then I had one pair of short shorts for just kind of when I needed to do laundry. I have something to wear. So I had a pair of short shorts that I wore to the airport. Oh, also, 38 degrees. It was 38 degrees on day 1, 38 degrees on day 2, 38 degrees on day 3. So I did have a lot of, I had a down vest, I had a rain jacket, long sleeve rain jacket, and a thermal long sleeve rain jacket, and rain pants. What I had on, my get up for going to the airport was these shoes, the rain pants with the short shorts under it, and this jersey. I had this jersey on. So it was a big park all across the connected to Denver and Edmonton. And so that's how I ended up in Edmonton. The plane flight could have not gone better. Well, so you've probably already seen all this. I had the hotels already booked, which goes into the next day, what actually happened. So two of the big highlights, you'll see that it's going to be hard to tell here, but I'm basically winding my way through. Oh, that's the actual route. That's what I did. The planned route was like zigzagging through Wyoming, because I was trying to ride all the counties in Wyoming on the way home, which I realized in Edmonton is a little bit ambitious. So on day 1, I made it out of downtown Edmonton. I go, yeah, no. So already knew that was not going to come together. But the other thing, which I still was fully planning on doing this, and this is ride number 3 for the Ride for Gabe in 2019. We rode out to Pikes Peak, did this awesome fundraiser and everything. But we went right by the New Mexico. I said New Mexico, that's wrong. It's actually Oklahoma. New Mexico had 13,000 Wheeler Peak or something like that. That's Nevada. I don't know. It's 13,000 feet. You can't do that on a bike. But the Oklahoma high point is right there in the tri-state. It's actually a tri-state area, which people may not know about. There's actually a tri-state with Colorado, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. That spot right there. And the high point of Oklahoma is right there. And so on the way out for Ride for Gabe, we were going to hit that, and then it was like 1,000,000 degrees the entire way across Oklahoma. We were behind, and Luke can testify. 1,000,001 with a headwind. So you had a blast furnace headwind as you're riding across Oklahoma in 2019, and we were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So we weren't able to go up to that high point. I tried again in 21. I rode myself from Birmingham out to Colorado. My son had a mountain bike camp in Durango, and I rode out there and then drove home with him and my wife, who went out there to pick him up. And anyway, so in this trip, as you see here, the plan was to go get that high point right there. As you can see, I did not hit the high point. I didn't even skate. I was so far off of that. But let me explain how we got there. So as I already mentioned, you can see that little red peeking out at the top there. There's a spot that I was supposed to go even farther north. Part of my fascination with all this is just being as far north as possible. And so I was like, well, man, I was trying not to ride on the highway I ended up riding on for 150 miles. Right on the highway. Trans-Canada Highway 16. 1,700 trucks, mostly, passed me on Trans-Canada 16. The speed limit is only 68, but they were going a bit faster than that. The trucks in the cars over there. And so I ended up like that day 1 after riding through, getting up there, and I was like, I'm not going to make it to any of those hotels. And so I decided I'm just going to go down to Trans-Canada 16. It's the most direct, flattest route across. And so you see I already cut out that bit at the top there. Made it, talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I had, so yeah, not going to make it. Cut off white cord, 1,700 cars. And then on day 2, I don't think I have this. I don't think I got it. On day 2, I ended up breaking this. Oh, yeah. I broke this. Day 3. I broke a spoke on day 3. Early, that's why I said very early in day 3. Like basically the that day ended up being really long, and I basically made this other decision. I was already planning on cutting out miles, but just already planning on that at that point. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to gravel. I kind of lost trust in that rear wheel. Although I made it to Rebel Stroke. It's pretty fun because I did a search. I was go, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And I mean, the wheel was still rideable. I ended up riding it for 45 miles, so it was rideable. And I did not know. And as part of that 45 miles, there was a lot of descending in there, and so there was a lot of descending, and I was concerned. What's going to happen? And my bike was so loaded, all that weight. I had a rear pack here, which I've never used before. So all that weight was on the rear wheel, which had the broken spoke. And so I kid you not, I was like putting as much weight as I could forward, and ended up making it to Rebel Stroke. But when I did this search for bike shop, it showed like, I don't know, a quarter of this map. Is how far zoomed out it was. It was a huge chunk of the map to find. I guess the way Google Maps works with that is you've got to find 10 bike shops or whatever to populate the list. I had to go that far out to find 10 bike shops. And fortunately, as I said, it's only about 45 miles, so I didn't have time to ride. One question is, I want to know, it had been longer, basically. I don't know, maybe it was the timing of when I realized that. Anyway, but I did make it to Rebel Stroke, which had a shop. He was able to fix the stroke. He actually pointed me to a cafe. He's like, cafe just down the street, go there. I went there, ordered my food. I'm just like barely starting to eat the food, and he's like, he calls me, he's like, I got to go. So it was super quick. Was able to continue on, but at that point, I made another decision. I pretty much, so way back here, day 3 would have been this little section right here. I was already pretty much axing New Mexico at that point. I was like, I was in Oklahoma. I was already like, I can't do that. Because the Oklahoma section, hey, welcome, Sean, Stephen. That section, and Stephen and I talked about this beforehand when I was just like, hey, I got this great idea to do. And he's actually been there. You haven't made it to the high point though, right? Up at the top.
Not to the very top.
Not to the high point, but he's been at the bottom, which has very cool huge dinosaur footprints in, fossilized footprints in the mud, dry mud there. So he's seen that. Because that's what I wanted to do, but like I said, way up here, I'm already like, probably not. Okay, but I was still planning on doing something. I was thinking about diagonaling down here. Still planning that. I make it to here, and there's a lot that we'll get through in a sec, but I make it to here, and I spent it's hard to convey the feelings on I-25 South. Right here between this little town called Wheatland, Wyoming, and Cheyenne, Wyoming. 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Shoulder was fine. The shoulder was fine, but there were sections of it that had nasty gravel on it. Full rumble strip, which I was mad about, because a lot of these western states will do, even on the interstates, sometimes they'll have a broken rumble strip, which is incredible for cyclists who are stuck on the interstate. We'll talk about that in a second. But the full rumble strip, and a gazillion cars. What are you people doing at 2 in the morning between Wheatland, Wyoming, and Cheyenne, Wyoming? So there was a lot of going on. It was so rural there, though. The Milky Way was incredible, and when I did get off of that, I was able to get off. I did about 15 miles or so. When I got off of that, some of the most fantastic sky I've ever seen at night was there, because by that point, about halfway through, I started with a full moon, and by that point there was no moon. Or there was a little sliver. There may have been a little sliver. That's right. I have a picture of a little sliver of a moon somewhere in there. But the Milky Way there was incredible. So I got that as well. Oh, up a 2,000-foot climb. Forgot to use that little cheat sheet. So from Wheatland down to the river, 2,000 feet to get over a pass to then drop down to Cheyenne, right? So, into a nasty headwind. And I'm still trying to figure out the physics of this. But this was 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning overnight. The wind was extremely, this was like a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, just straight into the wind. Okay? Then, and just a little bit, start diagonaling over, coming down, and I start diagonaling a little bit. You're not going to see it here, just going through a little section, but I diagonaled a little bit to get down to Cheyenne. That section was around 5 a.m. Finally off the interstate, no traffic. I'm like, this is great. There are birds, I kid you not, there are birds that sleep in the road. Did I know that? I know that because I almost hit a bunch of them. So I am riding like, oh, this is beautiful. And then I'm like, what was that? So these birds will sleep in the road. I guess with the warmth maybe, I don't know, because they would sleep in the room. I make it to Cheyenne, and this is where Christine was born, my wife was born in Cheyenne, so I was like, not cutting out Cheyenne because I had a lot of options to cut over sooner. I'm like, I'm gonna go through Cheyenne. I get to Cheyenne, like, it's the perfect time of day. Sean can testify to this. 6 a.m., you've ridden all night, sunrise, beautiful sky. It is the absolute best time to ride a bike to begin with. And then when you just get this, like, I made it. There's a sense of I made it through the night. Combined with, it's nice, time to ride. Combined with, again, I'm not sure about the physics of this. I had a tailwind at this point. Not strong. The wind had kind of died down. But I did have a tailwind. Oh, that's kind of nice. As I started heading east. And that wind just picked up. And at some point, I had 30 miles an hour. I kid you not, that's not like gusts. That was between 20 and 30 miles an hour sustained, but there were sections where I'm like, oh, do I even use a pedal? For 175 miles. That's not an exaggeration. 175 miles. Well, other than maybe the first 20 miles of that in Cheyenne, like I said, because that 175 is literally from Cheyenne to Ocala, right? It's been in the night. And I rode, so that ended up being the longest day, 2 or 3 miles. We'll get that set. That's the actual bike with the setup. These people were fun. So there's two people back down there, and they were. Oh, I wish you could see the lady because she has like a parka on. And to be fair, it was cold. This was probably in the 30s or maybe 40 degrees at this point. And I'm like, I didn't see them down there at all. And so I started to frame the picture. And so I framed the picture, took the picture, and they're like waving at me. So anyway, then I went back to the Icefields Parkway, which was easily the best. Oh, and then again, here's that weight, all that weight. So, but yeah. So those are smart water bottles, which fit with all I don't know about all, but the Sawyer water filters that I have. You just literally screw the Sawyer water filter onto the top of a smart water bottle. Water bottles, plastic water bottles come in all shapes and sizes, but smart water bottles, they work. And it fits exactly. So that was my plan for filtering water, if I needed to, was to have those with me at all times. My favorite day in the US, which we'll get to in a second, I had 2 of those. Those are the big ones. Those are 33 milliliters, I think, or 33 ounces. 33 ounces. 33 ounces, so how many? More than a liter. 1.5 liters. Because 1.5 liters is 33 ounces. 2 of it. That's a lot of weight. I carried it up this 6,000-foot climb, my biggest climb ever, and lost it. Oh. When I needed it. Did not drink anything out of them. And I lost them because I ended up doing some pretty cool stuff at the top, off-roading, and then there was peanut butter mud, and I walked around, and it was in that section where I walked around that they fell out. And so I then ended up riding for a long time without water. And the irony of this, I just carried all that water up here. And then did not have one. That's much later. This is back on my favorite day of the whole trip, for sure. This was in Canada. The ISO Parkless. Yes, exactly. It's like, it intentionally did that, right? No, my favorite day of the whole trip was the ISO Parkway. And there's a lot of discussion on the race, because the race for the Tour Divide follows a route that starts in Jasper, which is where the Icefield Parkway starts, but it does not use the Parkway. It goes on some dirt trails, but they don't include any of it. They started much farther down. They started about 200 miles farther down in Banff, which is fine, but there's discussion about including this in the Parkway in the race, which, I mean, the views were incredible, like non-stop incredible. This was like 100, I think it's about 125 miles. The section that I rode is about 125 miles long. Just constantly, just like, we can't get any better than this. Get any better than this. And it did. I mean, honestly, it did. It was like all incredible the whole way. If you ever need a scenic vacation somewhere, fly into Calgary. Calgary is much closer to all this than Edmonton. Fly into Calgary, go to Banff, which is a bigger touristy area, and then drive up this Icefield Parkway. It is worth the expense, worth the experience. And this is, I mean, these are not my favorite pictures from that section, but they were three that I could find really quick. And I wanted to include the elk, which is the largest elk I had ever seen. That was in a rest area, which I love. So this entire section had these little rest areas, nothing to do with like American rest areas. These are more like Montana. So these are like Montana rest areas. So which are a pit toilet, and which is there's no running water. So this whole stretch. So it's a pit toilet and a place to park, and there's almost always a scenic something or other there. This was the Goats and Glaciers. So this was the Goats and Glaciers overlook. And he was there. He was hanging out there. My favorite day here in the U.S. This is where I lost my water bottles. Somewhere, so I climbed up this road. It goes up and it goes around the back of this, and then it just turned to complete mud. Presumably because the snow had just melted or something. It was nasty mud. I was not going to ride through it, so I walked to the edge, and I lost my bottles in there. But this was cool. This is Medicineville Passage, significant to Native Americans. There's an actual medicine wheel is still there. It's this stone, like a squealing skull. It's pretty big, like the size of the shop. Maybe not quite the size of the shop, maybe half the shop, with the hub in the middle, if you will, the center stone, and then it's got all these stones going up the side. Lots of prayer flags around the side and everything, so I think it's still significant as well. But it's very old, so from 400, 500 years ago, 1600, from so it's very, very old. It's there, still there. Anyway, but to get to there, it's the highest point of the trip. This peak here would probably be about 10. I only hit 9650, I think. So 9650 around the back. This is another couple hundred feet. So one of these guys should hit that one for sure. The valley, which I started down in, the valley. So it is a continuous climb from the bottom to the top. To give you an idea, I love measuring things in weird ways. I weighed out thunderstorms at the bottom. See any thunderstorms here? Bright sunny sky. If you look behind me the other way, you might have been able to see it way off in the distance. But it basically took me, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours, 4, 5 hours. It took me a long time to climb this. And yeah, to make it up to the very top. That was my third biggest, highest climb ever. Okay, 175 miles of this tailwind. Tailwind was awesome. I rode by a bank, it said 105 degrees. The bank summit said 105. My Garmin said that it's 116 right there, but it actually said 118. That was one of my pictures. I think I got another one that's all shaded that says 118 in there. And I'm like, this is pretty crazy to be riding in this. But I'm also like, it's a 30-mile-an-hour tailwind, you know. So I did. I mean, you know, it's like basically minimal effort, low effort, ice in the hat, every gas station, and the people were concerned. The gas
Well, some of us were concerned too.
The gas station people were quite concerned. They were like, "You sure you should be riding in this?" And I'm like, "I'm just riding the gas station," and I did. I really did. A coffee shop in there too. There was a coffee shop that got a big iced coffee in it. It set up like a saloon bar. And give the hell, yeah. But I got big old iced coffee there. Just sat there for like 45 minutes. Still, they closed. They closed at 3. I give you an idea of the time of day I was riding. They closed at 3 in the afternoon. I stayed there till they closed. Like 3. And then rode on ice. Well, look at these average speeds here. So keep in mind my average speed for the entire ride was like 13.9 miles an hour, 13.8, under 14 miles an hour. These are 5 miles. I have an auto lap set up. So every 5 miles, it auto laps, and then it tells me the average speed. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then I don't even know how many longer, how many more I did, but a bunch of them were all above 20 miles an hour, which it was very little effort. So I was like, I cannot stop. It just doesn't make sense to try and stop. That ended up being the longest stretch, you know, the next headwind, noise, and traffic. So I was not supposed to hit Nebraska at all. I was supposed to oh, no, wait, no, it wasn't. That's right. I was doing the Panhandle. So the Panhandle of Nebraska, you know, it kind of sits up above a little bit of Colorado, Wyoming. Wyoming. I guess a little ton of Colorado. Yeah, that's right. Because I was supposed to turn and go through Colorado. That's right. So yeah, so it's above Colorado. I was going to do that whole Panhandle there. And it's not very wide, it's 100 miles or something. And then I was going to cut through the very eastern part of Colorado. That tailwind, everything else, like, I'm going this way. So I definitely wasn't supposed to cross Nebraska. And I did not realize I was going to cross Nebraska until I was pretty much across Nebraska. Like I kept on every single day. Because none of this, I had no route. I had no route this all year. So every single day I was trying to figure out where am I going to go? Where am I going to go today? Or how, you know, what, and every day. But I was like, you know, the easiest, simplest, and just the easiest, simplest, fastest thing I could do was stay on Highway 30. And so I did. Lincoln Highway. It crosses the entire state. I rode every inch of that thing, pretty much. Some of it joins with I-80. Thankfully, I never had to run on I-80. But some of it does merge with I-80. There was always frontage roads. That's the thing. Is the farther west you get, you lose the frontage roads. They have a very narrow valley, big mountain valley. They got a very narrow valley that they got to shove an interstate into. There's no room left for a frontage road or anything. And so that's why, I mean, it's perfectly legal too. None of this is illegal. Even as far east as West Texas, I-10, you can ride on I-10 on the west part of Texas. But a lot of the western states, it's well known. Basically, that's your route. If you're going here, you're going to ride in this section. But it's not. It's definitely not ideal. The speed limit was 80 miles an hour. So the speed limit was not 70, 80 miles an hour for most of those sections of those in Montana, Idaho, Montana, and a little bit of Wyoming, I-25. So people are going. Oh, I forgot to get a picture of this. So I'll just mention it here. I was gonna copy some pictures here that I've taken, but Iowa, so not only did I cross Nebraska, I also crossed Iowa, which was again, not on the plan. And my dad called me, he's like, "Are you going to Chicago?" I had the satellite tracker, so follow me. He's like, "Are you not planning on going to Chicago, are you?" And I didn't realize how close I was to all that until I started seeing stuff I started seeing all the highways that take you up to Minneapolis, up to Shell Lake, where my wife is more recently from, Wisconsin. And I'm like, I'm not that far from any of that. I was basically in like the middle of Iowa. Okay, so eventually I do make it to the Mississippi River, and like I gotta go. And by that point, I was on. The wind stayed an annoying headwind. I never had a tailwind. I mean, I had the tailwind in Nebraska, but once I made it across Iowa, I had this cross the whole way across Iowa, and then coming down the Mississippi River, it was always a headwind. It was not bad though. It was like maybe a 10 mile an hour, 5 mile an hour, sometimes calm. I did not have a tailwind until I feel like there was a section of Mississippi where I caught, and there was a whole bunch of storms and everything. So I think I rode a raft or something from one of the storms. I mean, it's like 500 miles from the middle of Iowa all the way down to Memphis. I mean, I eyeballed that on the map, so I'm not 100% sure how far it was, but it was a lot of many thanks to Stephen, who said, "You gotta go to Hannibal. Gotta go to Hannibal, Missouri." Been there, and it's right there in Hannibal, Missouri. It's the home place of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. That's his hometown, and the whole place is set up with around town, like big denote things around the town from the time that it's there and everything, and very cool setup. This is from that town over the Mississippi River, and there were so many. I mean, again, I was just kind of piecing the pictures together, and I took about maybe not thousands, but maybe almost 2,000. Took a bunch of pictures on the trip, and there's other cool stuff that I'm just remembering, and just riding along sometimes. And I would cross every time I had a chance to cross the Mississippi River, I crossed it. Because there's not that many bridges. And I'm like,
we were following him on the live tracking, and my daughter was like, "What is he doing?" I was like, "I think he's just going across every crossing."
Yes. I'm like, I am right here. I am not going to miss this chance to cross the river. Who knows if I will ever be in this spot again. So we did that, and then Missouri. Shauna can testify to this. Steve can testify to this from doing Race Across America. In Missouri, they for Race Across America, when Shauna had won, she's the world record ever. Yes, she has done that 7 times or 8 times. I don't want to discount. 6 times overall. Oh, 6 times overall. Okay. And Race Across America goes through Missouri. Most of Missouri is fine, but as soon as you get to the right half of the state, it is not fine. And they have a big problem, like particularly for cyclists. I mean, cars, whatever. You're not. It's not gridlock. Although some of those interstates were definitely gridlock. But for a cyclist trying to make your way across the eastern half of Missouri, unless you are on a bike path, it is awful. But there is some good bike paths. The question is, though, is it on your route? Is it near? Is it going the right way? The worst thing is like you go that way and the bike path goes this way. So I don't know. I mean, it's not my problem to solve. They have a problem in Missouri. Okay, and then so I spent the night. So Missouri has that little boot at the very bottom of Missouri, so that the second to last day, I spent the night there, and we, I spent a little town there, and then the very next day, I rode through 4 states, to cross, so go from there, you go through, you finish that little section of Missouri, all of Arkansas, then you cross that little bit of Tennessee, and then basically halfway across, Mississippi to New Albany. And so and that was a nice chunk, it was like 180 miles or something. I don't remember the exact distance, but I was like, this is good. And I was like, I can do the rest. It's gonna be another good haul, another 200 miles to get from New Albany all the way back. Birmingham, so I didn't end up happening, we'll talk about that in a sec. But I'm in New Albany, and Christine realized that Josiah was coming home from, he was leading a mountain bike camp in Dentonville, Arkansas, and this was on Sunday, June 30th, or the 29th, I don't know. So it was whatever that Sunday was. And they finished the camp, and they were coming back. They were going to be driving back on I-22. New Albany's right there. I was on I-22. You can ride this old section of 78, that whole stretch. There was some cool roads that I'd never ridden before, and a nice bike path. The Tanglefoot Trail, incredibly, it's like 30 miles long. Incredible bike path that connects New Albany through a number of really small towns, and it was a really small town. I have no idea what it was, but it is another really small town. Incredible trail. It's very close. It's like 160 miles from here. So looking for a biking vacation, it's not bad one. That'd be good ride to do. But anyway, so I was back up there in New Albany. I was gonna spend the night there, and they're coming through. I'm like, hey, we got to jump in. So sure enough, they pulled off. My hotel was right next to the gas station, so I walked in. Oh, right. So this is my setup. So keep in mind, in fact, I was probably doing laundry at this moment. So I only had these shorts, this shirt, my rain pants, my rain jacket, this short sleeve, this short sleeve down vest, and some short shorts. So right here I had, you can see it, I had the short shorts on and the down vest. That was my go to laundry, and then also.
You have how many pairs of socks did you have?
I had 6 pairs of socks.
Socks are important.
So if you ever want to get into bike packing, you need socks. They are super lightweight, and you need socks.
And if you get miserable, change your socks.
Yes.
And you'll be better.
Yes. 6 pairs of socks. So in Missoula, Montana. In Missoula, Montana, I met this guy. I met this guy at the Days Inn. The Days Inn, the Missoula, Montana Days Inn Airport. So if you're familiar with Missoula, Montana, it is the headquarters of one of the biggest bike organizations in the U.S. for trail. I can't think of the name of it.
IMBA?
Like, since they're involved in that, that's not the name of the organization.
IMBA? No.
The one that does the routes, the Tour Divide route is one of their routes. I can't think of it. They're headquartered there in Missoula, and one of their cross-country routes goes right through there. And I don't think they use the section of I-90. I don't think they use I-90, but I-90 is right through there. They use something else right there. But one of their cross-country routes goes right through there. There was, this is according to the other guy. I know there was at least 2. There was me and this guy that I talked to, but he said there were 2 more. He said last night I talked to 2 other people staying here. There were 4 bike packers, I should say cross-country cyclists, because he wasn't bike packing. I wasn't really bike packing. I don't know about the other 2. I was more touring because I didn't have a tent. I didn't have anything like that because. But my point is, when I was talking to him, he's like, "Well, where?" Because maybe he did do some. He's like, "Where did you do tent or?" And And he said, no, it wasn't even him, it wasn't him. It was another random person in another hotel. Another random person in a hotel somewhere in the U.S. That's details I can get. Somewhere in the U.S. I stayed in a hotel, and I'm in the elevator, and this guy gets in the elevator, rides up and says, have you ever ride with you? I'm talking to you today, because this guy that used to ride from wherever, I feel like this is in the West, like maybe someplace in Wyoming, Nebraska, somewhere in there, but he said, I used to ride from here to Chicago. That was the thing I used to do like 30 years ago. Over the thing I used to do like 30 years ago. I'd ride from here to Chicago, here to Chicago. And so he wanted to talk to me about it. And so he's the one who said, you've got two options when you're doing this kind of touring. You do it fast without tent, or you do it fast or cheap. That's it's either cheap or fast. So if you want to do it fast, you don't want to mess with it. And on top of that, the extra weight and the aerodynamics of having extra stuff up there. But it's not going to be cheap. So if you want to do it fast, he said something to me. He was a hilarious guy, and I was super delirious. This is the end of my day. But he said something about you got to have a big wallet or something. Which I stayed in a number of hotels that did not require a big wallet. I did not know these kinds of hotels existed. But apparently, the cheapest I saw was $57. I got a hotel for $57. I did not know you could do that anymore. But they are out there. My strategy was to try and keep this as the cost down as much as possible. But then when I needed to do laundry, I was always hunting for like Holiday Inn Express, or something that I would know. Candlewood Suites or Holiday Inn Express, they both have this guarantee. It's like the same thing. They're gonna have an in-house guest laundry machine, and it's nice hotel. So every 3 or 4 days, I would try and hit up one of those so I could do some laundry. And other nights, I would try to find the cheapest place possible using Google Maps watching, and which works really well, by the way. So you just ride along, and then pick a town and say watching, and it'll give you the prices and everything. And I would pick a cheap one, but you do get what you pay for. I don't want to gross anyone out too much, but the biggest thing was flies. You always have flies. The cheapest hotel was in packed with flies in the room. And other stuff as well. Yes, exactly. So I didn't have to worry too much about mosquitoes. I mean, there was times I was going slow enough that they easily could have gotten me, but I never did get bit by a mosquito. Horseflies. So I did get bit by a few horseflies. Not in hotels, just riding. Those things are fast. But getting a draft too. But back to this. I'm almost done here. This is at the end. My good friend Roger Larson got any of the centuries, the old Alabama Backroad centuries. He would do every single one of them. So I met him through that and just saw it. And he still does Cheetah Challenge. See him every time in Cheetah and hang out. And he lives in Columbus. And so I'm like, I got Roger, I'm coming to Columbus. Let's get together. And so we had lunch together. He bought me lunch, super awesome. He showed me he does restoration work. He took me across. It was great. I needed a break. Mid-afternoon. Showed me some restoration work to do it. And then I'm like, all right, I can go. I can make it home. The plan at this point is to make it home around midnight. So I make it about 15 miles from there, and I'm at a gas station because it's pretty rural. This is Carrollton. I didn't even know Alabama has Carrollton. And it's in the same spot that Carrollton, Georgia's in. So Carrollton, Georgia is right there. Carrollton, Alabama is right across the border from Mississippi. So it is West Alabama. So I make it there. They have a gas station there. And gas. And while I'm in the gas station, it just starts pouring down rain out of nowhere. I mean, there was clouds, there was storms. Christine was following some stuff. She was following my tracking too. She said there was like radar, or she said there's a storm. Anyway, but it caught me by surprise. So I took up my pose here. This isn't Tuscaloosa, but I took up a similar pose at that gas station, just sitting there, eating my chips, watching the rain, chatting with the people I see in the house, just waiting. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta go. So I'm still trying to make it home. So, but I was probably there 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So that's just add that on to whatever I was gonna finish. And then I get to Tuscaloosa, and oh my goodness, the lightning. So the lightning was so bad, and I could not believe that I didn't actually get rained over too. Like I got soaked from Carrollton because I left Carrollton while it was still raining. It was pouring. I was still rain, no lightning, rain. By the time I made it to 82, and they're redoing 82 west of Tuscaloosa, they're gonna make that 4 lanes for a lot longer. So by the time I got to that, and I wasn't on 82 at all. I didn't have to ride that at all, which was good. But by the time I got there, it had stopped raining. But the lightning was just intense. You could see the storms. They were both coming from the north, just lightning everywhere. It's kind of cool to see. And I'm trying to gauge, and they're coming south. Everything's coming south. And I'm trying to gauge, can I make it to the Dollar General was actually what I was heading for. But there was actually a gas station I made it to a little bit farther I needed to, and I made it there right as that stuff hit. Same deal. So that's this picture. And I sat there for a while, probably another hour. Same deal. Lightning passes. It's still pouring down rain. I had to go. And I did have to ride that stretch of 82. If you're familiar with western Tuscaloosa, that's a problem cycling wise because you have to make your way south to Highway 11 and then make your way up the way that all the rides do in that area. They go down across, this is the Blackboard River, you have to cross the Blackboard River. So you got to make your way south to 11 and goes that way, or you do what I did, you ride 82. And until I rode it for just a few miles, and it was fine. The drivers were fine, without thankfully. But because it was pouring down rain, it's not a light rain, but it was still pouring down rain. I was concerned. And made it over to the airport. If you're familiar with Tuscaloosa Airport, you go there, there's a little bitty town. I don't know if it's like an official Northport, like historic Northport, or if it's the original Northport. It's not the Northport that I think everybody who lives in Northport lives in. But there's this little downtown area thing. It might be something else. It might be some other little town or something. But cool. It's cobblestones, right through that. And then you got to hop on 43. You still have to cross the Warrior River yet. Hop on 43. So I'm trying to go to 43, and the cop gets on a speaker. It's like, sir, you cannot ride your bicycle. So the police officer in Tuscaloosa came in. This is on the on ramp to go up and then over to get into like downtown Tuscaloosa right there. And so because there is a bike thing, but I'm also like 40 lanes. And so I didn't want to have to get over the cement because I didn't see that. I missed the access to it, so I had to, and which I ended up doing after it was nice. Load my heavy bike up and over the cement barrier and then ride across that. I know it was all fine. But I ride through downtown Tuscaloosa, which is deserted. By this point, it's like 10 o'clock at night, 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm a little surprised. Nobody around. So I'm riding through University Avenue and all that stuff. What's pouring out rain, though? And I make it to the far side of Tuscaloosa, to all the routes that I'm familiar with, and it's still pouring down rain. And I talked to the gas station, because I was like, okay, 'cause as soon as you get east of Tuscaloosa there, unless you're on 11 or 20, there's nothing. Like you are out of luck for a long ways to get Green on. And so, if you're going around, so you get Green. So I needed some stuff there. I'm talking to him, and it's just this is insane. It's dangerous. It's going to be dangerous because there's a lot of potholes. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go. So I ended up getting a hotel in Tuscaloosa and then the next morning, get up, leave, and as I get to Coaling, I broke my shifter cable. So I broke my rear shifter cable in Coaling. I ran 3,715 miles by this point, about 40 miles to go, and I broke broke my rear shifter. I had an extra rear shifter cable with me, which I still had from the Tour Divide 22. Right? It was still in my frame bag. I knew that too. I checked ahead of time. Because I mean, that is something, there's no excuse for not having an extra shifter cable. I mean, that's like no weight, no space, and a big problem if you break your shifter cable. So I still had that, and was able to get it. It took a while, but I was able to get that in, and yeah. No questions? Sorry, this is Ask Me Anything. I promise. I won't talk for like an hour straight. Sorry, because I already have.
Not even.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, you got here late.
Okay. Yeah.
When you're planning these trips, what aspect causes you the most preparation time?
Gas stations. And so that was a big deal that when I lost my route, basically because I'm heading east, I had no idea how far gas stations would be. So this entire route, I had found every single gas station.
The pre-planned route.
Pre-planned route. The pre-planned route, ahead of time, I had found every single gas station. So it wasn't hard in Canada. Some of them were, and it was hilarious. Some of the signs were hilarious. 150 kilometers, everything's kilometers. So 150 kilometers. They have a little gas sign, 150 kilometers. So you're not me. But then as you get into the U.S., you're going to get more. And so the question is, well, which ones do you want to mark? And I had them actually in my GPS preloaded. And so and that's a big, motivational thing too. Like, if I'm following my route, I know exactly how many miles to gas station. And so I don't have to think, well, I've got 200 miles to finish the day, or I've got 150 miles left to finish the day. I got 8 miles to make it to the gas station. I can do that. And so that takes me a lot of time. In fact, I didn't do that all at once. There's no way. I mean, that probably spent 20 hours, 30 hours doing that. So I did that over, I kind of finalized my route stuff. I mean, I finalized my overall plan probably by May, and then I spent a lot of May doing exactly that, going through. So that takes us. That's actually an idea for an app that I'm planning on creating. My friend John Barash and I credit him because it's really his idea, but I definitely need this app. And so he and I we'll see. This is like a 3-year-old idea at this point, but he and I might go in on this. We're going to call it Cycle Sherpa, and the idea is to do all that planning for you. And I did automate some of that with some Google Maps API stuff. So I did automate, and that helped with that because I could just click and say, show me all the gas stations. This was it forever. So I'm hoping to create an app that does that.
Do you ride at night or do you ride during the daytime?
So when I landed, I mean, there's so much I could talk about. I could stand here and talk for 6 hours straight.
You could.
Not exaggeration.
I'm here for it.
Not an exaggeration. There is at least 6 hours of stuff I can talk about. So what I was just thinking of based on that question was sunsets. So I landed in Edmonton at 10. It's like 10:07 or something. We were a couple minutes early. Then we sat on that runway a long time. Well, 10 minutes. But we landed at let's just call it 10:07. I've got the picture of the sun. The sun had not set as we landed. 10:07 p.m. That's how far north I was. So there's. You ever doing any of this as far as logistics goes? In Edmonton, there's a Holiday Inn Express airport hotel, 2 miles. I was prepared to drag my bike 2 miles in a box or whatever. I had all kinds of emergency backup plans here. But my original plan was to spend a whole day in Edmonton. Was like, I'm going to, get off the plane, see if I can get the big box, and I won't have to put the bike together in the airport. I can put it together in the hotel room, right from the hotel room the next day. because my original flight plans had me getting in much earlier. But when because I was flying, could fly from Atlanta at some point. When I finally went to get the tickets, I found that super cheap flight from Birmingham, and that left at 3 p.m. I kid you not. I left Birmingham at 3 p.m. on the ground in Edmonton at 10:05 p.m. They're one time zone behind us though, so that's technically 11. That's with a connection in Denver. Everything went so perfectly smooth with that plane flight. But theoretically, I could have ridden. I was riding my bike by 11:30 p.m. So I had my bike assembled in the airport and was riding my bike by 11:30 p.m. So technically, that first day, the date on Strava, that first day is June 9th, the day I flew out because I started before midnight. If I had ridden in Birmingham that morning, I would have had a ride. Remember, I didn't leave till 3 p.m. I would have had a ride in Birmingham, here in Hoover, on the same day as a ride in Edmonton. But that didn't happen because I didn't need to ride. And, the bike was already packed up. Yeah, so I'd already boxed up the bike and everything. So, but anyway, that just fascinated me.
So you rode that night, is that
my
right?
point is, because I was getting in so late, I was like, you know what, it just makes sense. I'm going to be all amped up from the flight, and I'm just going to ride. It make save money too, no hotel. So I just rode straight through that first night. Then afterwards, and that's the other thing. You are so far north. Technically, they do not have night. So if you look at one of these time and date places, they only make it to astronomical twilight. They never make it past astronomical twilight to night. At this time of year, well, they're probably by this time of year, I'm sure it's night. But when I was there, it was close to June 20, longest day of the year. They did not have night that night, so it never got dark. I mean, it got dark. It was definitely dark, but it was not like dark. Plus, there was a full moon, which was super fascinating because that full moon. Familiar with the way the moon stuff works is you have a full moon, it rises when the sun sets. At least it does around here. I would assume that applies up there as well. But around here, the moon rises at the exact same time that the sun is setting on the side of the sky. It's a full moon. So they had a full moon as well. That moon rose in the southeast. And then it got a little way up in the sky, and I watched that entire night go across. It's just barely, like a third of the way up maybe. So it's not like a full moon here, it's up high in the sky or whatever. It never got more than a third of the way up, if that far. Because I checked on the moon is setting already. Wait, how? So, and they set it in the southwest. So it went from the southeast, this little arc in the sky, and it set in the southwest. So it was, and it was bright orange the whole time. Well, it started out like this kind of reddish orange, and it stayed orange the whole night. And then it set, it was never white, it stayed orange the whole night. And I think that's because you've got some of the day glow from the sun. It's probably what was giving it that orange color. But anyway, so there was not a lot of night in Canada. Like basically 7 hours, 8 hours. So when I did ride, I started the next day, I started at 2 a.m. or just before 2 a.m., like 1:45 a.m. I started at 1:45 a.m. It was starting to get morning daylight, morning light. You could see the morning sky start to in the distance by like 3:45. So 2 hours of dark. It wasn't really that dark. And I got some incredible pictures of the mountains at night. And you could see the mountains. You couldn't see waterfalls. You couldn't see that kind of texture. But you could see all of the mountains. I did not miss any mountains in that 2 hour section. And the Alpenglow went on forever. So like all those views, like this picture right here, this was not like a short window. What do they call that? The golden hour? It's like the golden reel. right? 3 hours maybe a little bit of exaggeration, maybe 2, but it was a long time.
Were there many cyclists in Canada? No road, major road.
Yes, that's the Tour de Bike route, and again, with that broken spoke, I was gonna stick to highways, and I went 2 valleys over. The original plan was to go 2 valleys over from that, and I went 1 valley. And so you've got these big mountain passes. You see like, oh yeah. So if you see, so doesn't this sound like a slideshow thing or something? Look up here. I mean, there's a row of mountains like this. Then you'll have a valley. Then you'll have another row of mountains like that. And it's just like that series of valleys. So your choices are the Tour de Bike route goes through the valley that Banff and Lake Louise were in. I was 1 valley over, which is where the town of Golden and where Golden is. Oh, right here's 2. Because then at Revelstoke, I had a big pass I had to climb over. So I went up and over to Revelstoke, which is the Columbia River Valley. So that's the closest I made to the Pacific Ocean. Is I followed the Columbia River down through that valley because it just goes south. It doesn't go west towards the ocean in Canada. The headwaters of the Columbia River in Canada, and it goes south into Washington before coming back up into Canada and then going back again. And to the ocean at that point. So I was in that river valley. So that trail or route is the river valley. And I wanted to go, and that was part of my decision. I didn't want to go on the exact same one. That whole area is a really touristy part. Banff, Canmore, tons of cycling, tons of bike paths, tons of trails. Revelstoke as well, but once you get out of that whole area, not that I know of. I mean, I was just on pretty much maybe state highways. Days 1 and 2, I was on the Trans-Canada highways. Days 3, I was on the state highways. They were pretty rural and pretty small. Yes. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. This is not on the route. I mean, this is off the Icefield Parkway. So, this is off the Icefield Parkway, but I'm like, I gotta go. And partly because, so in the moment, I'm doing these big climbs. So Icefield Parkway, basically, you're in this one river valley, which is awesome. The Icefield, the Columbia Icefield. I don't think maybe it does have something to do with Columbia River, with valleys over. Anyway, don't want to confuse people with that. But it's called the Columbia Icefields because there's a mountain there called Mount Columbia. Don't think it has anything to do with the Columbia River unless the water from the valley I was climbing comes back here and winds its way around the 2 valleys over. It's possible. It's possible that's the headwaters of the Columbia River. I'll have to look that up. But the climbing, and then I'm getting close to, and it's just so cool. There's just so much stuff to see. I'm like, I don't really need a detour to see anything. And then I get there, and you get to the highest point. They have little signs on the highest point of the Icefield Parkway, and there's this Pate Glacier or Pate Lake overlook sign, and it went up. If that had gone down, there is 0 chance I would have gone down. But because it still went up, I was like, okay, I gotta go higher, right? But down, you're gonna come back up. But I'm like, I can kind of control, I can go higher, and it's kind of cool to go even higher. The highest point in Canada is just under 7,000 feet. When I made it up to here, at this overlook. And so I made it all the way up there, and ended up having to walk about half a mile each way. It's about a mile to get to this overlook. There's a ton of tourists there. But that was one of those like, I'm gonna take the time to do this because there's a lot of times if there are a ton of tourists, that means there might be something pretty cool. I mean, you can see some camera, and I even waited. I had to wait to get to a while. Just little overlook and everybody trying to get in there. So on the salsa, I have a dynamo, and that dynamo powers the light. So I had no light that I had to charge. Pretty bright light on the front of the light.
So what is a dynamo if somebody doesn't know?
So a dynamo is a big fat hub, and as that wheel is spinning, it generates electrical charge. And so right here, there's a part of the hub that sticks out on the inside. There's a part of the inside of the hub that has two little connectors that you can connect the cable to that runs up to the bottom. Technically, the reason why I said that, well, it's not entirely relevant to your question, is because you can also charge stuff off of that. I never charged anything off of that. I just didn't have to charge the light. Because that is the biggest problem with you either have to take a bunch of lights or you've got to charge the lights. I don't have to worry about a lot.
How much do you feel the drag?
It's so slow. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm gonna chalk it up to I'm just getting older and slower. But I did have a lot of extra equipment, so it's not on here. But I had this phone. I had a phone.
The normal phone. You had a normal
Yeah, I
phone.
had my regular phone. Then I had this phone, this Garmin. I had the GoPro here. You've got the radar here.
And so that sideways phone, if people missed it.
Yeah,
I mean, the sideways phone right there.
Yeah, this is the one for the lateral passing distance.
So he's capturing, one of his research projects is capturing the lateral passing distance of cars. So he's gonna try and map and do some research on that. So that phone was capturing all that.
Right.
So there were only two phones?
Two phones. Only one Garmin. Oh, right, and the mini laptop. Okay. So the mini laptop is what I like to call it, the Garmin Montana. I would laugh when that thing came in the mail. It was like $800, and I wanted something, right? So if you're familiar with the satellite tracking, the big player in that really is the Spot Tracker. They're the big player. But Garmin has better ones, but they're more expensive. And their typical line is called the InReach line. So the Garmin InReach is the cheaper. They're still really good. They're smaller.
So if you got a cell service, I can always find you.
Right. Although the Icefield Parkway, no cell service, 120 miles or something. I didn't talk to you at all that day. So Apple actually, so with the iPhone, Apple just kept on hounding me to use the satellite. It's like you can use the satellite in an iPhone to text. It said I could do it. It kept on popping that up. It's like, no, don't want to do that. And so, and part of the reason I didn't want to do that is because you had to. At one time I did click through on that. You have to take your phone and like shake it through with something or other. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so, especially since I had a literal satellite, my mini laptop, I was like, I don't need that. Anyway, so they have a version of it called the Montana, and I got the Montana 750i, and I'm like, oh, this thing was awesome, because the screen, because I have, in some of my bikepacking stuff, the real off-road, real bikepacking stuff, some of the stuff I've done, I've had problems with the Garmin, just dying, or like it lost satellite, and it just sits there, it says lost satellite. there's nothing you can do about that. If it says lost satellite, you're out of luck. And until it gets the reception. That happened to me on a couple races. But the Montana has a big antenna, the satellite antenna and everything. But when that came in the mail, it was way bigger than I thought it was. I mean, the thing weighs like 2 or 3 pounds. I mean, it weighs a mini grams, and cyclists like to measure things in grams. This is mini grams. So 453 grams times 2, this is at least 900 grams. Look it up. The Montana 750i has to be at least 900 grams. But the thing is huge. And so what I did is I mounted it right, and it uses a lot of battery. Go back to your question. It uses a lot of battery, but it sat right here, and I left the screen off the entire time. So I only used that for the satellite tracking. Now, that is because, I mean, I was just dying laughing about this too. Someplace in Mississippi, I was like, I've been staring at that thing off. In fact, I did. I think I turned it on. I mean, it was on the whole time. The screen was off to save battery because I was navigating entirely off of this card. Because this is set up more for what a cyclist needs. The other one is more for like an adventurer. You know, it's called a Garmin handheld. It's supposed to be handheld, not mounted on a bike. And so I had that thing strapped. I bought a mount for it. The mount for it is also hilarious. I should have brought that. The mount is huge. So it's like if you've seen some of these phone mounts, Spotlight, by the way, is the best phone mount out there. But if you have a different kind of phone mount, they have something that grabs the phone on either side. This is like a huge version of that to support the weight. And it's still on my shakedown ride I did the week before I left, 250 miles in West Alabama. I was on some really rough roads, and that thing bounced off, and I was just watching my mini laptop tumbling down the road because it had come out of this big mountain. It had to be so big to try and keep it in there. And that mount itself weighed a lot. Okay, so before I left, so this is back here in Alabama, after it's like, well, the mount doesn't even work that great, I figured out a way to take my Velcro straps and strap it around, so that is a shout out to Garmin there. That thing was straight up against the fork. The metal of the fork, 3,700 miles, the thing still worked great. So, I mean, there was like no cushioning or anything. It was right on the stem. It was right on the stem. But I never once used it for navigation. But it was still, so there's things like that though that give you this assurance, like Garmin, I'm lost, completely lost. It would be nice to have a very nice map that's gonna have satellite because it's got the nice reception and it has that satellite connectivity so that I can text even without cell phone connectivity. So it was kind of an assurance thing. It was. I may have to rethink my future adventures. I may have to go back to what it was. It was a lot of weight to spend all that time there. So there. There we go. Sorry, say it again. Missouri. Absolutely Missouri. Go ride your bike. And honestly, if you were St. Louis was fine. So what I ended up doing, I ended up St. Charles. I had problems in St. Charles. And if you're familiar with Missouri, St. Louis. St. Louis is like Atlanta. I mean, it's 100% like Atlanta, which I did not realize. You know how Atlanta has all the towns, Sandy Springs, Roswell, all the towns. Missouri has that as well. I was in St. Charles. I was still 30 miles from the Arch, and I was coming. That's on the west side, and I was coming from. I had problems probably 30 miles from there to get to St. Charles was a nightmare. And that's when my hand locked up and it was so hot that day and, yeah, so.
Okay, look at this street, and it's a scale of 1 to 10, how was that?
Okay, I just rode here at 4:50 p.m. from my house down 150. There you go. That's St. Louis. That's the roads. That's the kind of stuff you deal with. Although Alabama's a little worse because at least you do have a little bit of a shoulder. So you do have a shoulder, even on those nasty roads. But it's something you have to experience. Now, that being said, I got off of one of those, and so as far as like planning, I relied on the Garmin a lot when I was just at my wit's end with like out there is like the route that I picked the morning, and a lot of this I would either do before I went to sleep, or almost all of it before I went to sleep. So I would figure out what I was doing the next day once I was off the route. I'd figure out what I was doing the next day. So I would have plans. I would plan something, and then through Ride with GPS, I was able to get some stuff across to the Garmin. So a lot of times I was able to actually get the route loaded in the Garmin. So I get on that route, and I'm like, this was bad. This was a very bad route decision. So when that happened, I would switch over to the map and look at the popularity routing. So the Garmin, you can turn it on with popularity routing, so it'll be like a bright, darker colors. So I would rely on that. So when I got off this one highway I was on, because I was just so miserable, I ended up on this really cool road. It had a lot of climbing. So this is after all my full lockups and everything, because I was coming out of the valley. Because I was still coming down along the Mississippi River. So to get to St. Charles, I was coming down along the east side. Because remember, St. Louis is right there on the Mississippi River. So I was coming down on the east side, and I was still in the river valley. And so this very popular cycle road, which was as miserable as I was, and as much as I was trying not to cramp, I mean, I kid you not, this is where mosquitoes. This is where I was like, I can't do it. Where I'm going like 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, like up these little hills. And then I got up to the top. But anyway, so that's. So I would send you back to that highway or any other highway. So the next morning I left from St. Charles, I had 30 miles to get to the arch, and I wanted to get there before traffic got bad. So that meant I left at 3:45, 4 a.m., and I did 30 miles of like St. Louis and some of the surrounding suburbs, like Mountain Brook. I rode through basically a town that was Mountain Brook. I could not believe some of the size of these mountain mansions and everything that I was riding through. And huge lots, and like, this is urban, how do you have a huge forested lot? It was basically like Mountain Brook. The analogy, I did this like 4 in the morning, by that point, 4:30 maybe, coming there, hit a bike path, like, that took me exactly where I wanted to go, and to the arch, basically. So I was able to ride a bike, but they didn't even make it all the way there. So it was very surprising. Although part of that might have been my own route choice, because I think what it did is it went through the big park. You may know the name of that? Big old park in St. Louis. Big. I think the path went there. I didn't want to go that way. So I made it to the arch at sunrise, and then left and was going against traffic out of town. In the southern suburbs. And it got a little bit better as I started to make it down into that boot. But I'd send you to anything in the St. Louis suburbs.
I have an opposite question. When you got to your house, did you turn the brain off, or did you just start planning how you were going to write the write-up, or did you actually just
Data. So I immediately wanted all the data and started to try and get at the data. I mentioned at the very beginning that I had 500,000 files that I needed to get off my, well, even on my phone. I had to get it off my iCloud because I realized a couple days before I left there was no way that phone was going to be able to store as much data. it's 200 gigabytes. I got 200 gigabytes. That's 500,000 files, 200 gigabytes. And this is a 256 gigabyte phone, but I mean, there's other stuff on there. So I'm pretty sure I would have filled it up. And I didn't try, because it's tied into my same iCloud account, so I'm always hesitant to try and delete stuff there, worried that it's going to delete it from everywhere. So I can talk photos. But so I rewrote the app so that instead of storing it in the app itself, it was stored in iCloud. And I was very impressed with Apple on that. So they did a very good job of that. It's all seamless. So when this, I still had 100 gigabytes free, which I was paying. So there was part of me that wondered at some point, am I getting any data? I was a little concerned about that. At some point, it's just like I can't worry about that this entire time. So, but I got home and I still had 100 gigabytes free. I was like, what? But all of that stuff got offloaded. So somehow I realized that it needed to upload it to iCloud. And so, and I didn't write any of that code. I just wrote the code, told it I wanted to store it in iCloud, but it stores it locally on the phone first. And I thought that it would, I didn't have any good way of verifying this. This is like the day before I left, that it was working right. And so I came home, so I had to get all that stuff off. I had to, so I'm getting too technical here, but it's stored in a private iCloud container, and the only way to get at it is through the app. You can't just go to iCloud.com or any of the normal places. You can't get at the files, the 500,000 files. I had to get off there somehow. So I had to write code to download the file, to re-upload it to one of my servers. And so that took from, I got home, started working on that, and it was like Wednesday. So I got home on Monday. It was Wednesday of the next week.
So, a person like you, don't get the van in a shower, but you were thinking, I have to protect my data.
Yeah, I was thinking some of that, but also the photos. I started downloading photos and videos. I had all those little SD cards. I started downloading all those, and also it was fairly early in the morning. Like I think I was home by noon.
It sounded like you were really satisfied with the trip.
Oh, I'm so happy. Yeah, I don't know if I pulled up that last one. But that last one was like, there was a lot of things that didn't go the way I intended to, but I could not imagine them if they had gone the way I intended to, it had been any better. Everything I hoped for. And absolutely perfect. Even with that, okay, so the bike shop, get to the bike shop, awesome. Remember, he had Facebook posts. This guy is from New Zealand, and cool guy, super laid back, fun to talk to. It's just like, you're riding where? And you know, great time. And my wife and I have been in New Zealand. I was talking about Queenstown. Oh yeah, I love Queenstown. So we're talking about talking about that. It was just cool. And like I would not have gone. Okay, bike shops is fun though. So fun story here. Bike shops. I had him. This was early in the trip, super early in the trip. When I broke the stuff, fixed the wheel, no problem. I make it to Sheridan, Wyoming. Sheridan, Wyoming, Stephen. Do you remember that the shop was called? It's called Bike Shop or something like that. That was the name of the shop. Bike Shop. Or something.
Beat bike and ski shop.
Or the,
bike shop.
yeah, something like that. Anyway, I get there and cool guy I'm talking to, and I was gonna have him replace my chain, and I decided not to have him. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep on.
Don't get a good vibe here.
Well, I'm like, I mean, there was no problem. I was having no problem. I was trying to be proactive. It's early enough in the day. I was like, you know, trying to be proactive to replace the chain. I think I'm and so that happened 2 more times where I make it, and I never really had any shifting problems, so I'm glad. But by the time I brought it here to Todd, you saw the sag in the chain, right? So by the time it made it here, the chain was like dropped.
So I've been doing this for like almost 35 years, and there are only 2 people I know that can wear out a chain. Keep it on the mic. I mean, all the chain ring teeth are just needles.
Oh, right, right.
The rollers on the chain are just banging around. Just, I don't know how it stays on it.
It's not very often that I hear you say,
Come here, look at
That's because I collect these things.
But I mean, so
What tools do you take for years?
So this was it. So pedals. Let's talk about pedals. So my plan was try and not take the pedals off. But they intentionally made these boxes pretty narrow because they're always shipped without the pedals. They always ship without the pedals. But that was my plan, was to leave it on. When we tried to get it in there, well, it wasn't fitting very well, and it was bulging out the box. I'm like, the pedal's just going to go through the side of the box. And so I had to take the pedals off. Remember, whatever I take there, I have to bring home to Alabama, right? Or throw away, or give away, or something. There's a funny story about scissors in a second. But I posted a message on Facebook if anybody had any solutions here, what can I do? Because how can I put my pedals on? Take them off fine before I leave, but how can I put them on? Although that was hilarious going through the airport security and everything. Because like I didn't want all that stuff in the bike box. So I had a bunch of, I did leave this in the bike box because I worried it would consider it as a weapon or it probably would have been fine. So this was in the bike box, but my pedals and all the small parts I kept with me on the carry-on. And so we had to go through those. But this has this. So I didn't have my pedal wrench with me, so I just ended up hand tightening the both sides. It was fun. I was really, yes, yeah, that's what I was told. It's like it's likely to tighten itself, and it did. Like I could not undo them if I needed to, so they did tighten themselves. But there was some creaking, fairly early on, so at least it wasn't tight. But that eventually went away. So this is it.
What kind of tires do you run?
Yeah. So I did do tubeless. Oh, that was the other bike shop. And this guy was really cool. In the town that has the University of Iowa, not Des Moines. I don't think it's Ames either, or maybe it's Iowa State. I don't know. Iowa City. Yes, it's Iowa City. Like, I'm sorry, my geography. I did not know there was a town named Iowa City, but let alone that it's the University of Iowa is there. But cool, and of course there's a big college town too, so they had a number of bike shops. But I ended up, and you helped me find the bike shop. So my dad gave me the address of this bike shop, and so because I told him, I was running low, so like I had a flat basically. My rear tire was going flat, and I knew this because it's gotten comfortable. So not bouncing around, like it was soaking up all the bumps. But actually, that's definitely getting low. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna go. I'm like, well, how is it just low? What happened? And the shop was super busy. And it was him working. And I'm assuming he was the owner. I don't know. He was a little bit older, but awesome guy. And then there was like 3 younger kids, basically probably college students, working there with him. Bikes everywhere, customers, and I'm like, I am wondering if figured that I lost all my seat. My house was just low. And he's like, there's plenty of steel left in there. Pumps it back up. All this is like within like 3 minutes. I mean, it's under 5 minutes. But he's like, no charge. You should be good to go. And it was fine the rest of the way. So this was a mystery to me. I started out with 50 psi, and which is why it was so rough. So 42. So we're running 42s at 50 psi, which is a lot of pressure. It was down to 20. So I did put a pump on it in his shop, and it was only really 20 psi. So it's a little mystery to me how it didn't go all the way flat, but it got that low, and then they hit it. But then all we did is pump it up to, I think he pumped it. I said, hey, how about just do 40 this time? So he pumped it up to 40, and it was still 40 when I got home. And this was in Iowa, so a long ways away. So I went from 50 to 20, and I never got sprayed with anything that I know of. Now, I did have that rack there. I should have checked underneath to see if there was like some spray from sealant. I don't know how it would just lose that much pressure without there being a big dash. And then literally did nothing other than checking to make sure there was enough sealant, pumped it all the way up to 40, and it stayed loose. And I had this CO2, I had another CO2 in here, I had a tooth here, and I had a cyclocross tough tube. I mean, there's nothing specific about cyclocross, I mean, that's what I was before, but and it's designed for 35 millimeter to 45 or 42 millimeter tires. That thing took up a huge chunk. Like, it basically did not fold. I mean, it folded, but not like a normal tube, because it was very, very thick rubber. And I mean, I was paranoid about getting stuck somewhere, not being able to fix the flat. Which, I mean, I have a lot of experience doing that, but sometimes it doesn't work right, or you've got more problems, you've got more flats. And so as soon as I lost tubeless, my plan was stick the tough tube in there, so hopefully that would never flats again. Then of course, I still have 1 tube left. But that just reminded me of another story where I ended up with 5 tubes one ride. So this is coming home from Virginia once, and I got a flat early in the ride, and somehow by the end, I ended up with 5 tubes. I kept on buying tubes. I was like from Walmart and stuff, and I had 5 tubes by the end of that ride, which is cool. I think that is counting. So I think I had 3 extras. So I had the 2 tubes in the tires, and then 3 extras by the end. But I was like, I've got 5 tubes. And then no flats other than that getting low the one time. But that's common now. That's actually somewhat common for people to do the Tour Divide, the actual race, on much rougher, rockier, and not have a flat the entire way. I did not have a flat. So the entire, they just make tubes so much better. I mean, they make the tires are so much better, and when you've got them set up tubeless, you can take a lot.
What was your comfort pain level on the ride?
So that first day, remember I rode to the airport. That's a detail I forgot to mention. Say something.
It's live. You don't want to stop it?
Oh, do you have Josiah's password memorized?
No.
Let me see if I can memorize it from the time I was looking at it.